que creemos que la gastronomía tiene un papel fundamental que jugar como motor de las exportaciones españolas del sector. De hecho, pues, Owen, me vas a perdonar, pero voy a usar un ejemplo, una anécdota. Yesterday, Owen, he's a certified chef from restaurants from Spain, and he has been, bueno, pues negotiating here with providers for his restaurant. No, not for his restaurant, right? Yesterday he said, okay, Elisa, I have to go, I have to talk to a tuna provider and to a meat provider. Es fantástico, ¿no? Entonces estamos haciendo todo este tipo de actividades y de acciones para ayudaros a seguir exportando y mejorar la imagen de España y del sector en el Reino Unido. Bueno, yo ya lo dejo aquí porque voy a dar paso al consejero económico, al consejero económico y comercial, y es verdad, perdona, que tenemos aquí a Jordi Laguarda, perdóname que no he dicho nada, director of International Trade and Investment for Spain in the UK Embassy, right? Thank you so much for coming and for being with us. Please.
Egunon, buenos días a todos. Good morning, everyone. And thank you to our kind host, ICEX, the Spain Ministry of Trade, and San Sebastián Gastronómica for inviting to speak me. I represent the UK government today and through its Ministerial Department of International Trade at the British Embassy in Madrid. Nosotros somos el ICEX británico, so we help British companies exporting to Spain and we help Spanish companies investing in the UK. It's a great privilege to address such a distinguished group of figures from the world of gastronomy, business, and the Spanish food and drink industry. I'm sure that the Economic and Commercial Counsellor for the Spanish Embassy in London will outline, but the ties of trade and investment between Spain and the United Kingdom are strong and deep. Our nations share a remarkable economic symbiosis founded upon common zeal for global commerce and the cultural ties that bind our people together. For this opening, I would like to share with you three main ideas. The first one is about gastronomy. Gastronomy is one of these bonds for over generations that will continue to build upon solid bilateral foundations. For this purpose, the slogan of United Culinary is very convenient. It highlights the industry potential to unite countries, nations, and cultures. On the one hand, this bond is demonstrated by the millions of British tourists who choose Spanish destinations for their holidays and acknowledge the importance of gastronomy when making their decision. It is also explained by the success of the Spanish chefs like Pizarro, Barragán, Da Costa, Manzano, and Garcia, who have been promoting Spanish products amongst the British consumer for the past 20 years. And on the other hand, it emphasized how alive the United Kingdom cuisine and gastronomy is outside London and continues to absorb technical and cultural contributions without borders. For this reason, I'm delighted to see in this edition the participation of British chefs across the UK like Rogan, Hall McCarran, McHale, and Brown. My second idea is to highlight the variety and size of the food and drink industry and how the pandemic has played an essential role in changing the consumer habits. Do you know, for example, that the food and drink industry in the UK is the largest manufacturing sector, even bigger than the automotive and the aerospace combined? Only in 2021, it accounted for 20% of the total manufacturing turnover. Food and drink is a fundamental sector of the UK's recovery plan, and it has three overarching traits: quality, innovation, and provenance. What are the main trends that we see in the UK within the food and drink industry? There are three. The first one, processed food is fading away. People are becoming more aware of the health risk associated with processed food, and they are choosing to eat healthy options. Trend number two, immunity-boosting ingredients and artisan home cooking are playing a significant role. This includes recreating the restaurant experience at home by using pre-packaged meal kits, restaurant-branded products, and more sophisticated or flavorful ingredients from artisan food producers. And trend number 3, increased demand of health and sustainability. It applies to plant-based food and beverages, vegan, as well as free-from and organic food and drink. Finally, I would like to share my third and last idea, particularly addressed to the Spanish food and drink exporters to the UK, and is the following. The implementation date of the next phase controls on the movement of certain goods from the United Europe to the Great Britain has been postponed. The UK government will publish this autumn a target operating model that will set out our regime for border import controls, and it will target the end of 2023 as a revised introduction date. So please be ready and be prepared. In conclusion, UK cuisine remains open, welcoming, and without borders. We want to work closely with the Spanish exporters and the Spanish importers to help shape a promising future together. Thanks for listening to me.
Muchísimas gracias, perdón, Jordi, por estar hoy aquí y por tus palabras sobre ya darnos unos tips de las tendencias que se están moviendo en el Reino Unido. Voy a dar la palabra al consejero económico y comercial de la Embajada de España en Londres, Álvaro, por favor. Muchas gracias.
Buenos días, good morning to everyone. I'm going to do like Elisa. I'm going to mix Spanish and English and give some general ideas about the British market in general, and if we are talking about the food industry and the food market. I think I've got a presentation, should be somewhere there. Right, great. Well, if we look at Spanish exports in the UK, they are improving in the sense that we have had two shocks at the same time, with the pandemic on one side and, of course, Brexit. So it's not easy to disentangle one from the other, but we have done a little bit our best. So if we take into consideration, I don't know if you see the figures, if not, I more or less tell it to you, because I think they are a little tiny. Can you see them? There, no, okay. Yeah. So it's, the real important thing is that we have recovered from both shocks, and we are now exporting about 6% more than we did at the beginning, in 2019, at the beginning of the two shocks. But the figure is much better if we look at food, beverages, and tobacco. The food industry has improved much better than many other industries in the exports to the UK from Spain. Well, but if we compare to others, we are not doing that well. Is the main idea we can have here. We can be happy to say we have recovered and we are 6% over what we had before, but if we compare it with France, is 32%, Germany 12%, Portugal 43%, our main trade partners. So the UK has improved, but not that much. If we go to the reasons for, if we go to the, that's okay. If we go to, wait, there was something, no, there was one missing. Okay, this is the old one, sorry. So that's why. I had the sterling against the euro exchange rate. We can talk that there is another issue that we've got there. It's volatility. And in fact, the slide is not there because we had to change it last week, as you can imagine. No, it's very important because this volatility is stronger than if we compare it to other important markets. And it adds another obstacle, another hurdle to what exporters usually have to look compared to other markets. If we've got the idea of an Spanish exporter and want to increase their businesses, in the case of the UK, we don't only have Brexit, but we also have the problems of the exchange rate and the high volatility it imposes on the sales. Okay. If we look at here you can see, it's not that important, all this data is available, will be available for you, how the different markets are doing. In the case of food industries, we can say that more or less all have done very, very well, but fishery. Also as a result of Brexit, as you can imagine. New rules, more difficulty, for fishing products to enter the UK market, a problem of licenses, well, very well known. But the rest are doing quite well, which is important as well. Okay, I'm going to show you a little exercise that we have done and we have published, trying to see what has happened in our trade with the UK as a result of Brexit. No? This is an exercise that is called a difference in difference exercise, in which we make this, this supposition. Imagine that the UK had behaved exactly like other markets if they hadn't gone, if Brexit didn't exist. So we have this mental exercise saying, if Brexit wasn't there, the UK would have behaved exactly like, for example, Germany, or like, for example, France, or the US, or Japan, or Canada. These are the markets we were comparing. And if the results are more or less the same for each different, in the comparison with each different country, we have the intuition that this result is really robust. So this is more or less the idea. You have, this is the UK movement. This is, for example, Germany. And we understand that if, without Brexit, the UK would have behaved exactly like Germany, in parallel, okay? So what do we have here is that in the case of food, not general trade, in the case of food, if we compare the UK with the UK, of course, the difference is 0. If we compare it with France, it's about 5% less. I mean, if the Spanish export would have behaved exactly like our export to the UK, exactly as our exports to France, it means that Brexit has cost a 5% less exports for the Spanish industry. If we compare with Germany, it's about 10, with Italy about 2, with the United States about 1. So roughly we can say that Brexit hasn't been so damaging, because the general figure is about 12% in the case of the food industries. If we look at the other side, that's imports from the UK, then it's really dramatic. Figures are between 60%, 50%, and 80%. That means that a lot of trade has been destroyed coming from the UK to Spain as a result of Brexit. This is very, very interesting. In the case of food industry, in other industries as well, with other goods as well. Some people may argue that it has been the difference in the controls at the border. From the beginning of last year, the EU has imposed all kinds of phytosanitary controls that are, of course, compulsory for all third parties, which hasn't been the case for the UK. But my intuition is that it's not only that. We can talk about how Brexit, in fact, has prevented many companies to continue their business in the UK, especially we are talking about e-commerce, has diminished very dramatically. And my intuition as well is that this volatility, these problems, the British exporters are finding difficult to reach our market, although this figure is recovering. But in any case, they are finding this more complicated. Well, here you can see all the figures in fresh produce, preserved vegetables, olive oil, cured meal, more or less what you have seen in the video, that we are always ranking top in the UK market. So, to sum up, Brexit has created problems. Brexit has diminished our exports, much more our imports from the UK. But still there are those great opportunities. And now I'm going to change to Spanish just to tell you about the trends and opportunities for Spanish companies in the UK. Es muy importante que tengamos claro que el mercado británico sigue siendo un mercado poderosísimo, con altísimo poder adquisitivo, con unas capacidades de compra enormes y un sector muy eficiente de distribución que permite pues, que cualquier tipo de producto, incluso productos muy nicho, puedan entrar en su mercado, y eso es en el mercado británico, y eso es muy importante. Yo diría que es el mercado más sofisticado, por lo menos dentro de los mercados grandes, que hay dentro de Europa. Las nuevas tendencias, que las ha contado muy bien Jordi, son muy importantes en el Reino Unido. Muchas veces el producto español le falta etiquetado, porque tendemos a poner solo en la etiqueta aquello que es obligatorio según la normativa. Pero es que nuestro producto, por ejemplo, muchas veces es perfectamente orgánico, o nuestro producto no tiene alérgenos, o nuestro producto es apto para el consumo vegetariano o vegano. A lo mejor no es obligatorio ponerlo eso en la etiqueta, pero el consumidor británico lee las etiquetas y las lee mucho. Y las tendencias son fortísimas, como ha contado muy bien Jordi, en innovación, en food tech, en la necesidad de encontrarnos con que nuestros productos, que ya de base muchas veces cumplen esos requisitos, busquen ese tipo de consumidor e informen adecuadamente bien a ese tipo de consumidor. Eso es muy importante porque muchas veces lo notamos, que desde la propia oficina, que vemos cómo hay oportunidades de venta y de exportación que no están suficientemente bien aprovechadas por esta razón. Es un mercado que sigue creciendo porque va buscando cada vez más calidad. Es un mercado que se mueve hacia los productos de gama cada vez más altas, y eso también para productos como los españoles, que tienen esa capacidad, sirven extraordinariamente bien. Luego yo diría que hay que atreverse con el Brexit. Es verdad, o sea, ha creado unas cargas enormes, como contaba antes Elisa, en las encuestas que se han hecho a las empresas. Pero al final no es tanto. De hecho, cualquier empresa que exporte a China o a Estados Unidos va a tener más problemas que trabajar con el Reino Unido. Pero es verdad que aquellos que no tenían experiencia en vender fuera de la Unión Europea, pues se han encontrado con un montón de papeleo. También es un mercado complejo y difícil a través de los importadores. Y aquí una cosa muy importante para las empresas. Hay que cuidar muy bien los Incoterms. Porque claro, antes no pasaba prácticamente nada. Pero en el momento en que tienes nuevas cargas y nuevos problemas, ¿quién carga con todo el proceso de introducción del producto dentro del Reino Unido? Digamos que en esto hay que tener una capacidad de negociación. A veces se tiene más o a veces se tiene menos, pero también nos hemos encontrado con problemas de eso. Mucho cuidado por consultas el año pasado en la oficina, del orden de 1.200. Habitualmente teníamos 200, 300 y pasamos a 1.200. Las primeras consultas eran a principios del año pasado muy básicas, de temas de casi paso por frontera. Luego las últimas, incluso teníamos que consultar a la propia aduana británica, que a lo mejor ese caso concreto no lo había pensado, no lo había resuelto, y emitieron en aquel momento pues, una resolución o un comunicado diciendo esto se tiene que hacer de esta determinada manera. Es una cuestión de saber rellenar los papeles, por decirlo así. O sea, el 90 y tantos % de los problemas que se han encontrado en las empresas españolas es porque no sabían cómo hacer el procedimiento. No un error de la administración británica o de la administración española, no, sino que también se tenían que adaptar. No, era mucho más el hecho de que las empresas tenían que pues, conocer, a veces no marcar. Por ejemplo, típico elemento que ha generado problemas, las devoluciones. Mandas un producto y luego te lo tienen que devolver. Eso tiene que ya estar libre, pero para eso hay que rellenar bien los papeles, tanto de ida como de vuelta. De eso hay 50, son 50, ¿no, Rafa? Que son, Rafa porque es el experto mayor en paso de frontera entre España y el Reino Unido. Tenemos 50 guías de negocio, de acceso a mercado, que están publicadas en la página web de ICEX y del Ministerio, muy específicas en algunos casos de los elementos que hay ahí, y sabiendo, y esto es con lo que quiero terminar, que el Reino Unido todavía no ha tenido capacidad de establecer al 100% sus controles aduaneros, especialmente la parte sanitaria y fitosanitaria, entre otras cosas por el volumen, porque para España ha supuesto como un 20% más. El hecho de que ahora tengamos que controlar el producto británico que entra, que antes no lo controlábamos, ha supuesto como un 20% más de operaciones de nuestras aduanas. Pero es que para los británicos supone triplicar, porque el 60% de las operaciones que hace el Reino Unido son con la Unión Europea, por lo cual han pasado casi el 60 y tantos %, por lo cual se ha pasado de solo controlar un tercio de las operaciones a tener que controlar el 100%. Y, por tanto, van poco a poco gestionando esto. Ha habido 2 aplazamientos, como sabemos, de los controles en frontera. Se supone que estos entrarán en vigor a finales del año que viene o principios del siguiente. Lo mismo las normas de etiquetado, que han cambiado, que han sido aplazadas varias veces. Y aquí se corre el riesgo de dormirnos en los laureles, que eso es lo que quiero decir. Es decir, por mucho que lo hayan aplazado, llegará un momento en que tendrán que aplicarse. Y, por tanto, las empresas deben siempre tener claro que de un día para otro podría ocurrir que ya se establece el sistema y hay que pasar e ir con los certificados adecuados y pasar la frontera como se tiene que pasar. Y además, como ha dicho Jordi, hay un anuncio del gobierno británico de un cambio radical en el sistema aduanero. Digamos, los británicos han anunciado 2 separaciones de la normativa comunitaria. Hasta ahora toda la normativa comunitaria fue trasladada como legislación británica y son leyes británicas. Pero hay dos ámbitos muy importantes para las empresas en los cuales han anunciado que se van a separar claramente de la normativa europea y, por tanto, ya van a tener una legislación diferente a la que tenían hasta ahora y diferente a la que tenemos todos los países europeos en común, que es el sistema aduanero y las compras públicas. Y dices, ¿compras públicas sector agroalimentario? De esto también hay. Alguien se puede presentar a un concurso de alimentar al ejército británico. O sea, que ese tipo de cosas pueden ocurrir en este sector. Influye más, evidentemente, en otros, como energía o transportes o telecomunicaciones. Con esto resumo lo que he dicho en todo este rato. Es un mercado que vale la pena apostar. Tiene un coste adicional que otros mercados por la propia existencia del Brexit y lo que ha supuesto en cambio de procesos, pero vale la pena hacer ese esfuerzo porque el dinamismo del mismo, la sofisticación, sobre todo si se tiene un producto de calidad y un producto que entra bien en la tendencia, va a tener una explosión de ventas espectacular. Todas las empresas que han venido a nosotros con productos que entran dentro de este dinamismo de mercado, pero es que mejoran ventas a velocidades enormes y eso, claro, es de una enorme satisfacción. Así que, pues animo a todo el mundo a que vayan al Reino Unido, que en el Reino Unido tenemos y estamos siempre a su disposición desde la Oficina Económica y Comercial, por supuestísimo, tenemos un potencial mucho mayor de lo que yo creo muchas veces se sabe.
Muchísimas gracias. Para eso estamos, para ayudaros a que os animéis a ir. Bueno, now I'm going to turn to English. I have this luxury panel with me. Thank you so much for being here with us. Alvaro and Jordi talked about the trends, and that's what we're going to do here. I'm going to start with Monika Linton. Monika, thank you so much for your participation in the video, and thank you for being here. Monika is CEO of Brindisa. Brindisa was founded in 1988.
That's right. Yeah.
That's right, okay. Great. As a specialized importer of Spanish products, right?
Yeah.
Back then, you were a pioneer, right? Because
yeah.
Back then, were Spanish products known in the UK or not that much?
No, so you have to, if you go back to 1988, you have to think that Spain wasn't a member of the EU, it wasn't a full member of the EU,
Okay.
So there was a lot of papeleo, which we're now going back to, which is not so fun. Things like Manchego cheese, for example, the DOP for Manchego cheese had not been established, so from 1988 to 1991, you could not find a Spanish cheese with Manchego written on it. You could not export chorizo and jamón serrano, Iberica, none of that was exportable. I mean, the only thing that British people really knew about anchovies, they were salty and they were on a pizza and that was about it. And the same with tuna, that it was just a cheap sandwich filling in a sandwich bar. And this was 35 years ago. So we've come a really, really, really long way in those 35 years. It's been slow. The beginning was very slow. But we've come a long way.
Now, where are we now? Can you tell us about that evolution of the perception and how the British consumer perceives the Spanish products?
Well, I would say now they really are beginning to understand it and enjoy it. They're beginning to understand there is actually a hierarchy within certain product categories. Like there is a hierarchy to an anchovy, there is a hierarchy to peppers. You know, they aren't just cultivated in large quantities in the south. They're hand peeled and so on in Navarra. So those hierarchies are much better understood. And again, the labeling that I think you mentioned earlier is becoming really imperative to make sure that the pack tells you about the skills that Spain has put into that product, because it's not just a simple product. It's got much more integrity than a lot of the products that you find in Britain and in a lot of the supermarkets across the world. So that's what we need to keep pushing forward.
Labeling.
Labeling and information, and also keeping the integrity of the raw ingredient in Spain as much as possible. Don't industrialize everything, please. We do a lot of work with artisan products, and it's a growing market. It's a challenge with Brexit because we've got many more sort of restrictions, if you like, in terms of minimum orders and so on. And the demand for artisan products is obviously lower than commoditized product, but they're very, very important to Spain's reputation. And I like to think, I don't know, I think this would be true, but when I started Brindisa in 1988, my initial target market was chefs, because chefs could afford to pay a bit more for the quality of an ingredient, and they had the ability to translate that onto the dish. And in the early days, they used to actually put the origin or the variety on the menus. In London, in 1990, you could see a menu that said arrocina beans, or judion beans, or piquillo peppers. And that was really through the chefs. It wasn't through the retailers, because the retailers are much more tight on margin, and they're much more restricted with what they can do. So I like to feel that because we started at that level at Brindisa, we have kept the benchmark higher in Britain. And in the very, very early years, a lot of other markets, America, Australia, and some other markets came to Britain and basically came and visited Brindisa, looked at our portfolio, as Patty and John will advocate, and took those products to markets beyond Britain. So we started high with quality. And I think that's what's really helped Brindisa stay in its niche.
Well, you've opened 5 restaurants since then, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I mean, I think you had the best strategy. I was going to ask you about e-markets and shopping online, because I think you are now starting on platforms, digital platforms.
That's right.
That's right, okay.
Yep.
You look at me and like, oh my God, maybe I'm okay,
no,
okay.
Absolutely right. Yeah.
I know you have an accord, no, with Ocado?
Yeah, so we absolutely do, yeah.
Yeah, no, and Alvaro talked about e-commerce, and I would like you to give us your point of view on that after COVID and e-commerce on products in the UK.
Yeah, well, we've got our own platform as well, so we have our own routes direct to the consumers, because again, Spanish products in Britain in a way have been quite niche for the last 35 years, and they're obviously broadened a lot. But I felt we really needed to get to the consumer, not always rely on intermediaries, because it's quite a difficult message to get through. So we have a shop-in-shop at Ocado, which is a real privilege, actually, because we're not just listed there. We've got our own, we have a fairly good control over what we can sell and what we can put out to the customer base. And we've got, I mean, e-commerce has grown massively. I mean, obviously COVID helped kickstart it in a way that none of us were expecting. Really, we didn't want COVID, but it did help e-commerce. And I would say sales tripled through the e-commerce platforms, and boosted by COVID, I think they've stayed at a much higher level. They've dropped back a little bit. And the same in our website plus Ocado as well. And we have a few other third-party online retailers as well. So it's definitely a future, but I think, again, there's not that much skill in the product that you can communicate online. So you still need the rest of the market to work with you, so that you've got retailers or chefs also just backing up the integrity behind it all, because listing lots of things on a website doesn't necessarily get you everywhere you want to go to. So we've got pretty much most of our products online, but I think we would almost be better to shorten it a bit and focus a bit more, because I still think the demand for some of the products that the categories that we really like to push, like Spanish cheese, the demand's not really there. I mean, there's demand for manchego, but, you know, there's many more cheeses than manchego in Spain.
Life beyond manchego, no?
There's life beyond manchego, much as I love it. So I think that's creating demand beyond the cosmopolitan centres is something that's really important for the consumers at home.
Thank you very much. Monika, I think, so I'm happy to hear what you are saying, because as I talked before of our certificate, restaurants from Spain, it's actually trying to put to signalize all these chefs that actually use Spanish products in their restaurants in order to help import and to help consumers to know and to be conscious that there's more cheese than
Yeah.
manchego, than there is the anchovies and everything.
Absolutely.
So,
And yeah, I mean, only one other point very quickly would be to suggest that one of the other strategies that I've always employed right from the beginning, along with my colleagues and suppliers, is that obviously the origin of Spain is important, but equally the ingredients that you have here can be used in all sorts of cuisine. It does not need to be an ethnic Spanish restaurant to be viable. And so we, at the very beginning, the first chefs that we sold to were not Spanish chefs.
okay.
They were all British chefs. And they loved the quality of the anchovies or the quality of the peel, whatever, you know. So that's also a very big message. We don't need to keep it totally ethnic in terms of application in a new market.
I
growing
think
market.
restaurants just have to have 60% of their products and proposals
Oh, for the
from,
restaurants, absolutely.
from Spain.
Yeah, yeah.
But yes, it's a very nice, very good reflection. I'm going to ask you something, but I'm going to give you time to think about it, okay? Now, because you know so much the UK market,
Yeah.
I would like you to think how ICEX can continue to support
Okay.
our companies in the UK. What do you think we could do to continue a job that you have done so great for the last, since since the 80s.
35 years, yeah.
Since
It's a long time.
35 years, exactly.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, that's why ICEX has created a prize, Foods and Wines from Spain, and she's the first one who's going to receive
Yeah,
it. I'm going to give it to her later on in the main auditorium, so I am so happy.
Yeah, me too.
Anyway, think about it.
Yeah, and
The
come back
question,
to me.
and then I'll come back to you, okay? I'm going to turn, because you were talking about the different channels through which you have to sell your product. So I'm going to turn to Jade Hoai from Whole Foods. Hello, thank you so much for being here. Good morning.
Thank you.
A ver,
You
can you hear her?
can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
I think so. So, I don't know if you need me to introduce you what Whole Foods Markets is, but of course it's a supermarket chain from the US, based in Texas, but you have like 460 shops in the United States, Canada, and UK.
Yes, so think we might be close to 500, but we've got of those 14
I mean, just
in
there's
Canada.
one that
Yes.
just opened, right? While we're talking.
All the time. Yeah, so 14 in Canada and then 7 in the UK, based centrally in around London.
And you are specialized in healthy products, if I'm
We're really proud. So our purpose is to nourish people and the planet, and we believe in that very strongly. And so we focus on selling the highest quality, natural and organic ingredients, without preservatives, if we can help it, without artificial flavors or colorings. And so we're very proud of that.
So can you please tell me about these trends that you have been noticing after COVID? Like consumers are more conscious about ecological products, vegan consumers, alternative protein. Could you please?
Yes, absolutely. So I think you've touched on that, several speakers this morning, about the trends that customers are really conscious about. It is definitely about the impact that we have on climate, on our environment. They're very interested in knowing how products are produced and what producers are doing to really minimize the impact on the world, and so that through their purchases, they can support those businesses that are taking those right steps. They are equally very interested in waste diversion. They're constantly asking us questions about what we do with our food and our productions. And I find that there are now a lot of founders, that are really trying to find ways to divert food waste into the food stream. So I worked with one producer that made tofu, and then from the offputs of that, took the nigari and put the soybeans into a sourdough loaf, so that you could then create more protein in it and have this great texture in the bread, and that was fantastic. And then I think the third trend that I would say that I'm seeing a lot of is that in terms of if you do choose to eat meat, animal welfare is very important, to know that the product was produced conscientiously, humanely, and that care and thought was given to the animal.
Okay, so the consumer is much more exigent.
They're very curious and want to be educated, and I think that's a platform that we're very conscious about, and we welcome that experience in stores to be able to tell our customers about how product landed on the shelf.
So we go back to the labeling, right? It's important.
Absolutely.
Okay, that the label contains all the information, not only the legally required one, right? Because the consumer is asking for it.
It's a delicate balance too, because you don't want to overwhelm the consumer on the packaging, give them too much information. But nowadays we see more and more QR codes coming up, and people really do scan it while they're in shops and look up the information or take it home and read more.
Okay, thank you so much. And what about Whole Foods, your purchasing policy and your criteria when you're looking for providers? Has it changed a little bit after Brexit, or are you still looking for the same providers from Spain?
Yeah, so our quality standards will remain the same, and these are global standards that we put out, we update, and we review. I would say that they haven't changed post-Brexit. What I have noticed with Brexit is that it makes the administration a lot more significant, and that it can take a bit more time for us to get the products in, but it doesn't change our purpose. It doesn't change our mission in wanting to offer the foods of Spain and offering the foods in our stores, because I think it's really important to be able to share that experience, that gastronomy, and that opportunity with our customers. So we're dedicated to still continuing to find the ways to make that happen.
Thank you very much. I'm going to do the same thing, Jade. I'm going to ask you a question, but leave you a little bit of time to think about it. And my question would be, what would you recommend the Spanish companies to do in order for them to sell to Whole Foods, okay, to become your provider, okay? So I'm going to turn now, while you give it a thought, to Omar. We go to the other channel that Monika told us, which is the restaurants. Gastronomy is so important. So we have here Omar Hoai, owner of Tapas Revolution Group. He has 12 restaurants all over England.
Yep.
All over England in shopping centers.
Yep.
So many of them. So I think you can, as we say in Spanish, take the pulse of the English consumer, right? And from all over the place, because as we were talking before, there's life after London also, beyond London. So tell us what role do you think the Horeca has to play in the introduction of the Spanish poultry in the UK, please?
Well, I think, you know, I think it's substantial. And what it's surprising is, given that 18 million Brits go to Spain every year, how much, I would say, the hospitality and what you see in supermarkets in the UK may play an even more important role in educating the consumer than them going to Spain and learning about Spanish food. Because as we know, a lot eat British food when they go to Spain, and that tells you a lot about the market itself. And touching upon the fact that I've opened restaurants all around the UK, not just in London, and Monika very politely mentioned the word, I think you use cosmopolitan centres. You know, I thought that was a good point. And, you know, I have restaurants in places such as Basingstoke that you may not have heard in your entire life. I just opened one a month ago. And you know, in Newcastle, in Sheffield, in Manchester, Liverpool, Bath, Brighton, all sorts of places. I actually, in fact, only have 3 restaurants in London. And that was a very thorough decision that I took, and that has influenced the way that I've shaped the business moving forward, because people is different in London than everywhere else. And to be frank, there is a north and south divide. There is sort of 2 countries within one in the way they purchase, in the way they consume in our restaurants. We can see a slight differentiation in the categories, meaning the seafood tapas and the meat tapas. You know, we sell a lot more meat tapas in the north, a lot more seafood tapas in the south, things like that, slight variances. We're talking of 10, 20%, but it's still substantial. And remember, you know, they are I'm not sure if they were the trendsetters of packaged food, but definitely they for probably 2-3 generations, they've been buying a lot of blue, red, yellow packets of food in the supermarkets as opposed to buying fruits and vegetables by the kilogram like we've probably been doing in Spain forever. And obviously that has been changing in Spain immensely. But you know, it is something to consider, that there is a north and south divide. And you know, at the minute, I was talking to Monika and to Jade just yesterday about, you know, some of the challenges that our industry is facing. And the reality is that, you know, we are on our knees, not Spanish hospitality, just the hospitality industry as a whole in the UK. We are having the hardest situation we've ever lived, or at least in the last 17 years that I've been in the UK. And I think things are about to change dramatically, mainly because people will be short of cash, you know, and I'll give you my own personal example. And, you know, I took the monthly statement from my bank account. You know, we're 6 at home. I have 3 kids, an au pair that lives with us, and we've spent in doing exactly the same thing, just purely through inflation, £600 more than we did 9 months ago in January, just before the war broke in Ukraine. And £600 is a lot missing from every family's pocket. And as a result, people will, when you're short of cash, you become risk adverse. You don't take risks. You make sure that the money that you have, you use it in the most efficient, safest way to deliver what you're looking for, whether it's a quality product or a quality experience. In our industry, in the hospitality, I think that will have an effect in the niche cuisines, like Spanish. You know, Spanish is not for every day in the UK, it's niche. That's why there is so very few Spanish restaurants up and down the country, Spanish restaurants compared to Italians, French, Chinese, Indian, and the lot. And you know, it's I think they will start going to what they know more, and for us that's a problem for Spanish hospitality, because before they would be adventurous and they would give us a go and try us, but I think probably now they will start going to the places that they already know and so on, and that could be a challenge. Having said that, you need to do something about challenges, you know, and there is opportunities in challenging times, and it's what do we do to change that, to make sure that they come, and you know, some people may choose to bring some products or some items to the menu that may resonate with them, things that maybe we've never thought about, like maybe having a burger on the menu. You know, you think, poof, in a Spanish tapas bar, that's quite conflicting, but if it's ultimately going to attract people into our restaurants, that they may use and eat a paella later or some other tapas and try our food, that's mission accomplished. It's ultimately what we want. And so I think there's going to be a shift in how people decide what to eat, where to go out. As I said, money is going to be short. Another opportunity, but this is less so, but you know, it can feel a bit cruel, me saying this, but the reality is that there's going to be a lot of people, a lot of businesses going out of business because of the financial situation. That's inevitable. And I think we are in a strong position, being Spanish, because we have a very differentiated product, very unique offering that is not burgers, it's not pizza, it's not the things that you see most often in restaurant offerings. And as a result, I think those that are on a very competitive markets will be the most likely to fall first. And hopefully, there'll be dilution of the customers that used to go to one restaurant and maybe come to other restaurants that we continue to be alive, fingers crossed. But, you know, there is definitely, we are very conscious of that there is changes coming our way and huge challenges that we will need to respond pretty swiftly, because you're talking to a person that lost my hospitality business back in the last crisis in 2008. So I know how quickly things happen once the inflation starts going up, the energy bills, this and the other. In our case, it's not just about the sales, which is the biggest concern, because that's the one thing that you cannot manage, you know, unless you do discounts. The only way of bringing new customers quickly is discounting business. And we don't do that as a business. You know, all our excuse me, our food is fresh, you know, and we hire skilled people. We don't have that option. We wouldn't be able to survive. The margins will be so tight. If we discount it, that'll be our death. But yeah, it's just, you know, it's at a time of a little bit of uncertainty that I would like to, to bring that to the table.
Omar, I don't know if you're a chef or an economist, because your explanation was excellent. No, I was going to tell you, why don't you make a mini burger for your tapas bar?
Absolutely.
Ha, that's for free, yeah?
Good Wagyu burger from Burgos, or good,
no, with a little manchego cheese in the burger.
Chori burgers, tortilla burgers.
Okay, now.
Things like that, absolutely.
No, and you can, no sé, not have pizzas, but maybe, ¿cómo se llama lo catalán? Esto, las cocas. Las cocas. Spanish pizza, like ¿sabes? O sea, there's always a way. There's always a way.
There is Ricard Camarena. I was listening to him yesterday, and he was saying that there was no information of pizza before cocas. And it's very likely that Italians invented pizza through journeys into the east coast of Spain and bringing that to Italy. So there you go. We have a story to tell now.
De verdad.
And it's all the story.
The Italians again.
The story that you tell. But to finish off, if you let me on opportunities, and you know, since we have
yes, give us a little bit of hope, please.
Retailers over here, and you know, it is likely that people ultimately what they do when they don't have money and you don't go out, independently of where you go and so on, you'll cook more often at home. That's the escape route, you know, and you cannot always eat the same old, even though we always eat the same old. But still, you would experience a bit, you'll become a bit more adventurous. I definitely feel that there is an opportunity, not just on the package-ready meals that Alvaro mentioned, but as well in the products and in the ingredients, as people is way more interested in cooking and achieving something themselves at home that is as tasty as in the restaurants. So I can see an opportunity in there.
Thank you. Okay, so I had like 3 questions. You've already answered them all yourself. But I'm going to do like with the other guests. I'm going to ask you something and I'm going to give you some time to think. I mean, you are talking about challenging times for restaurants, Spanish restaurants in the UK especially, because you are niche, you are quality, you don't do discounts. So what can we do from ICEX to help you? Let's say, sail that storm that you see coming. Okay? Great. So now I'm going I would like to talk about the other super hot issue, which is food tech. Yeah. I have here Mila Valcárcel, managing partner of Eatable Adventures. I have all the explanation of Eatable Adventures, but I think I want to share with you. Mila was the mind who actually thought about Spain is a food nation, but we have to be a food tech nation. Last year, right,
yeah.
Mila?
No, I think 2 years ago.
2 years ago, sorry, 2 years ago.
We started to build
and only yesterday,
yeah.
the Minister of Agriculture started talking about Spain food tech nation. Yeah. So thank you so much, Mila.
It's great for us. I think it's great for everybody.
It's great. It's great because we will live, right?
Yeah.
We have to be. a tech food nation.
Yeah, we
To
need
the
to be a food tech nation.
Or we're already starting to be,
Yeah,
no?
we are trying to be.
Trying to be,
We're
okay.
in the
So
road to be.
Eatable Adventures is an accelerator of the food tech ecosystem in Spain. You have a venture capital
Yeah,
also,
a fund.
a fund,
50
sorry.
million fund, yeah.
Okay, and bueno, we work with you a lot.
Yeah,
from
yeah,
ICEX.
yeah. Promoting the food tech startups from Spain and all around the world. And we are working all around the world. So
Now, so as you're an expert, could you please tell us about where Spain is in terms of food tech sector?
well, I have a very large presentation, so I will try to I will try to show you. I think Spain is quite different in this area of food tech because when you can, for example, when the food can travel, technology always travel, and this is a great issue to develop in our country. I think we started to build the ecosystem with the startups. We have here 407 startups. We have a census of startups, food tech startups. All of them are working in different parts of the value chain. Most of them are working, developing ingredients that are more sustainable, that permits you to develop food with a clean label. They are also working on the agri-tech arena. They are working, trying to have soils more productive, trying to develop ingredients without any contaminant or anything that depends from Russia in this moment, and a lot of them are also working. I think the 24% are working in the last part of the value chain. They are working in putting the food in the shelves, putting the food in the kitchens and so on, and also in food service and technology for food service and so on. So it's incredible the number of startups, and also it's incredible the number of the amount of investment. I think we are the 12th one in Europe in terms of investment. I think the UK, of course, it's in the fourth or fifth position, but we are in a very good position now, I think, and it will continue in the future. Last year, we made a program that is called Spain Food Tech Acceleration Program. This is a program that we are working with ICEX and also with the CNTA. And this is I don't know how to say, this is a high impact acceleration program in which one we work with the best startups, the most disruptive startups, and 3 of them have received funds from corporate VCs like Cargill, from international VCs from New York, from the UK, from the Netherlands, and so on. And this is a change in our country, I mean, because we are exporting now the technology. We're receiving a lot of money to support these startups. And also they are developing great, for example, in the case of Cocos, that they are doing 3D printing entrecots. That I know that here it's like you can say that because
don't
it's
talk
like,
about that here.
Are you crazy? Are you crazy? But they have, it's incredible because they have a gastronomic value. Because they are very good doing meat in the I don't know how to say, in the brasas, in the
grill.
In the grill. So they were very good doing grill at home. So now they have the best 3D printing fillet in the world. And this is incredible. They are starting to build factories. They are starting to have different agreements. I think they have agreements with the UK now. And also there's another one of this company that is doing hamburgers with mycelium. And I think this kind of product is pretty good for the UK market because it's a plant-based. Well, it's not plant-based because mycelium is not plant, but it is a plant-based burger with the same nutritional facts that you can find in a hamburger, in a normal hamburger, and in a clean label basis. So 5 ingredients, only mycelium based, and they are developing this type of products for, not for the Spanish market, but for the UK market.
Okay, so there are startups that are actually developing specific products for the UK.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
Most of them are selling in the UK because the UK is, as you said, is a different market. I think the UK market says a lot the quality of the product. They are looking always for the new one. They are always in trend. I mean, so we think that these type of products that are developed by startups here in Spain, their natural market is the UK market, and they are now trying to sell in Whole Foods, in Ocado, in different retailers there.
Okay, so I was going to ask you about opportunities for collaboration between the two ecosystems, the UK and Spain. You've already said that
we are not working from Eatable Adventure. We are working with, because we make a lot of open innovation programs with corporates and corporate venturing programs with corporates. So we're working in the UK in secret basis because it's confidential, and we are working with the startups from the UK in our corporate programs in another part of the world. We're working a lot, for example, in Latin America, and we're working with the startups from the UK, and now I think there is an incredible opportunity in order to invest in food tech startups in Spain. I think it's an opportunity for the UK market, and also I think it's an opportunity. There are a lot of startups in the UK that have incredible products, that have incredible technology that we can use here, and it could be a good way to interchange our startups.
See, great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mila. So, last question, and you can think about it,
Okay.
and I'll be back to you now. What can we do in the UK to reinforce the message that Spain is a food tech nation? Okay?
Okay.
Great. Now, Briony, last but not least,
Yes.
I wanted to introduce the food tech sector because, you are the CEO of Food Matters, and you are devoted to provide information about food. You have courses, you educate people on food, and I think in 2018, you were already celebrating happening Food Tech Matters.
Right.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And in 2021, ICEX actually participated in Food Tech Matters with 14 Spanish startups.
That's right.
Great. So nice to be here with you. Now, first question: how does the British investor see the opportunities in the food tech Spanish sector?
Sure. So, I mean, as everybody said, the British investors are always going to be looking at something that can tap into the consumer trends. And I think everybody here has, just to reiterate those are exactly the trends that we see. Major emphasis on plant-based, a big emphasis on functional ingredients and functional foods. Sustainable food production is increasingly important. Precision agriculture is getting more and more interest. How foods are produced and, is of vast interest to the consumers. But I think as well, so it's something that the products have to tap into those trends, whether they meet direct to consumers or whether they're involved across that food production process. But also, I think the people behind the business are always what's going to count for the investors. They will want to see ambition. They will want to see a collaborative approach. They will want to feel that they're a team that are very committed, that will be open to working with a new investment partner. And increasingly, that is coming through more and more. As the ecosystem for food tech grows and more people come into the space, the team and the founders behind it, the people behind the ideas and the business are counting more and more.
Okay, so the team, and what niche, you've mentioned it, but what kind of niche do you think are they more interested in the food sector?
So I think anything that can really show social and social impact and be on trend. So it has to tap into that sustainability message somewhere along the line. Definitely has to. We're seeing a lot of investment in, obviously, the 3D printing side, alternative proteins, not just in meat, but dairy as well.
Yes.
Massive market for that in the UK. Consumers are, even if they are just choosing to reduce their dairy intake or their meat intake, not eradicating it completely, but just wanting to introduce a little bit of variety into their diets, they want to see options and products that they can choose and integrate into their daily lives.
Okay, great, thank you. What would you tell Spanish startups that want to go to the UK? What would you tell them? This is key. This is how you have to approach the market. What's your?
I think it's just reiterating what people have said. If you're, all that element about being the clean label element, the provenance is really, really important. We talk about conscious consumers sometimes in the UK because they are definitely buying very conscious, very aware. They're very informed. There's a whole group that we talk about being the informed consumer. They're looking not just at the environmental element, but also things that can definitely add benefit to their own health and their family's health. They are looking for education, for sure. Ingredients companies, we work with ingredients companies, manufacturers, retailers, and everybody is coming at this notion of, like we've talked about the QR codes, being able to tell that story as much as possible about the provenance. And then the element of, in terms of if you find yourselves in front of an investment team, know your product, know where you want it to be, know your numbers, know what your 5-year plan is, and live and breathe it, because you will, that will pay off to the investment team that you're in front of.
Okay. Briony, I'm going to ask you the last question and give you some time, okay? So you are an expert on providing information, communication. Now, what does ICEX have to do, vale, to inform UK consumers about all the qualities and the high level quality of the Spanish products? Okay, what would you do? No, I'll come back to you. You can think about it. Now I have to remember what I asked every one of you. No, I think I remember, Monika. Yeah. So you had to tell ICEX what other things we could do in order to, bueno, pues eso, to support the Spanish wines and products from Spain.
Yeah, well, I probably won't think of all of the things.
No, but, one or two, I don't know more.
I mean, obviously, Brindisa is a very different, it's not a tech business. And, what guided me in the beginning was the flavor and the origin and the skill and the true tradition and authenticity of the products that I found in Spain in the 90s. And so some of those products are still not very well understood. And assuming that there's a sector of Spain that wants to continue producing genuine products with terroir, which is one of our key areas in Brindisa, then I think the support that ICEX could potentially give would be to help small producers, one, manage Brexit, because the volumes that come out of Spain of the smaller producers' products is obviously a lot smaller, but the scale, they haven't got the economy of scale that a tech business has got, or Campo Frio, or some of the big multinationals have got. So they really do need some help. We do quite a lot in Brindisa. We audit them and we help them design their product flow in their factories or their little artisan workshops. So we have supported them over the last 35 years, or 30 years really, when it became more obligatory to have all those HACCP and so on in place. So we have our own technical department that really supports, and buyers that support people to launch themselves into our market. But it's a very costly investment on both sides, and I think ICEX could potentially be a lot more supportive at that level.
Okay.
At the Spanish end, holding their hands a bit more. Because it's a real challenge for them. And now Brexit, it was difficult before. Brexit is really the worst thing that could have happened for them.
Okay.
Because the scale, it just isn't there. So that's one thing. The other thing that came to mind was cooking. Now I know we've got lots of chefs in London and Britain who are cooking more and more with Spanish ingredients, but Spanish ingredients some of them are quite difficult to cook. Like, cooking a good rice is not that easy. You know, cooking from pulses, from dry, is not, the English don't really get excited about soaking beans overnight, etc. So, we do, but not everybody. So it's really some of those hurdles, whether the great British chefs or some culinary or cookery institution in Britain, that would help bridge that gap. So you don't always feel you have to go to a restaurant to have it, but you are somehow educated through a platform in Britain to overcome some of those challenges in the home, because I think cooking more is obviously there. And I think there are a lot of people who want to cook with the products with integrity, you know, but they don't necessarily know how to do it, how to make the difference between a very standard rice dish or paella, a touristy paella, to a proper rice that you'd find here in Alicante or Valencia or somewhere. So those would be two things that would be, I think, really helpful.
We do have some programs, but they're mostly for professionals.
Yeah.
Claro.
And I think,
but that's a good...
I mean, people like, obviously, Nigella Lawson and people like that, they really get into people's homes. And when she has ingredients on her repertoire, they really, really draw sales, and they really open up people's minds. So, okay. And then the other sector that I started Brindisa with back in 1990 was cheese. And cheese has come a long way, because when I started, there were no DOPs at all. I think Roncal was the only one that existed, but, you know, Roncal's pretty small area. And so they're now the DOPs, but a lot of the DOPs have created market and consumption across the world, not just obviously in Britain, but now the demand often exceeds the capacity of the DOP region. And that's quite a challenge, I think, for ICEX, for us. You know, maybe we can discuss about it another day, but it's something to really think about, because the DOP has sort of added value and given recognition over these early 3 decades of us working with Spain. But now the next stage is there is integrity beyond the DOP. You know, there are producers who make incredible products. They're not in the region. There are quite a few naming and trademark battles that happen, you know, around certain namings. I don't know how we can solve that. I haven't got a solution, but I wanted to highlight it as an issue, because when we started the DOPs, I mean, I went to medical in, I think it was 89, 90, and they were just sort of bringing out a few leaflets. So we've come a long way in 30 years or so.
Monika, I'm just wondering, how did you get to know the Spanish products? Because you were saying in the 90s, where did you come for a holiday, or?
I think I just came here a lot. I mean, I had no dependents, I had no children. I just came, and I had, you know, ICEX was amazing. Maria Jose Sevilla, who everybody would know, Janine, all the colleagues from, I mean, I've known so many of the directors of wine, directors of food, directors of sherry from the London offices. So, and they always let me help, you know, be present, and, you know, they'd give me cards of people producers who were looking for market. So ICEX have been amazing. Suppliers have been really supportive. And so even if we're selling their product and we want something else, they'll recommend somebody else. So.
Okay.
That's.
I know, I take note of my duties.
Yeah. No. I mean, it was absolutely fundamental at the beginning. But again, it's just you build a network. So now, after 30 years, you know, if I come and visit Spain, I mean, almost every time I visit a friend in Spain, not a commercial person necessarily, they will say, you've got to taste this, because I tasted it in my village or the next door village the other week, and some, you know, so I get recommendations
all the time.
Just every time we step into Spain, there's another, like, you've got to try this, you've got to take that to London. So, yeah, that's how I can find out more.
Thank you so much, Monika.
But I do think the DOPs would be a really big thing to talk about.
Okay, we take note. And we'll talk about with our colleagues from the Ministry of Agriculture. But yeah, of course. Yeah. Jade, so what do Spanish firms have to do to become a provider of whole foods in the UK?
Yes, so specifically for Whole Foods, we obviously have a porter, supplier.wholefoodsmarket.com. But I think on a general level, I just want to echo what Monika is saying, in that I think it's really important to continue to search out and find these small producers and these unique offerings from each of the regions in Spain to educate the UK consumer, introduce them to a myriad of products that maybe aren't in the market right now. think when we talk about the British consumer and their curiosity, we want to seek out and find new, delicious and tasty things. So that would be number one. Two, I would say, is we all know about Brexit. Find a good partner that you can work with who can remove those blockers for you, ensure that you've got a steady supply chain, because then that makes it very easy for us or any sort of UK retailer to be able to get your products on the shelf, keep them on the shelf, and keep them full. So we've got that consistency of offer. And then third is working on a joint program to be able to taste the food, to talk about it, to educate the consumer. And I think if we could put those 3 steps in place, and there's just so much room for growth for the products in the UK market.
Thank you, Jade. Clear as water. Omar, now restaurants, what can we do?
So, well, I think it's restaurants and it's an all-encompassing industry in terms of the Spanish. I see it as all in one, to be honest. You know, the supermarkets, distribution, you know, we are all after the same goal. And if I can suggest a constructive criticism, since you
I was the one asking, so go ahead.
since you ask, you know, I think we should, from ICEX, I think if we could keep the goal of the consumer in mind, I think we could, you know, the route to get into them and doing the things that Monika was saying and that Jade, sort of for education, and how do you actually reach them? You know, I think it'll be a lot more useful, easier, effective, and definitely more financially viable if we were to break some of the barriers, the institutional barriers that there is at ICEX at the moment, and how the money is actually deployed. I think if we were to focus on the consumer purely, and maybe how the PR is exploited and some of the ideas, I think it will improve, it'll be way more successful.
Mila, I'm going to jump to Briony because she's expert in in providing information to consumers and teaching consumers. So how do we do that?
Well, I would echo the power of the influencer, actually, you know, where you have sort of people who are very well known with consumers who are then seen to be talking about, you know,
paellas, right? We all know what we're talking about here, no?
Buyers and influencers and famous people, you know, Nigel, like you say, people with huge followings on social media, they can reach a lot of people from a positive side. I think from a food tech perspective, which is obviously where I'm coming from, there's still a bit to do with the consumer generally about getting comfortable with eating some of the things that some of the food tech 3D printed steaks. However, I do think that there is something to be done to raise awareness between the incredible innovation that goes on here and the scientific expertise as well. And I think that there's more that could be done in terms of the collaborations with the universities, both in the UK and here, to raise awareness with that. And also to raise awareness amongst young people who are at those universities, who are working on the future of food, who are coming into that the whole industry and seeing the opportunities. More and more young people want to have jobs that have significant purpose and will make a difference. And with the innovation that's coming from the food tech space, I think the universities and that community is a good place to start.
Okay, thank you so much. Mila, your turn.
Yes, I think it's quite the same. I think we need to build an innovation along in the UK because we don't have now. We always speak about cheese, we always speak about jam, we always speak about the food, and we need also to speak about technology and the technology that we have beside this food, because there is a lot of technology now. The Spanish companies uses a lot of technology, but also we have an incredible research centers, universities, qualified people and startups, and we need a PR campaign to build the reputation of not only a food country, also a food tech nation that we need to build. And I think it would be great if we can make a roadshow with Spanish startups and UK investors, because they will notice that our startups are in the top on a global basis, and most of the founders want to go outside and want to receive money from different kind of VCs and so on. And I think it's quite good to have different investors for different nationalities in your company. So it will be great to make something like this.
Okay, okay. I'm noting it down.
We're trying, but
the team is there taking notes, so there are great ideas. So thank you so much, all of you, Mila, Monika, Briony, Omar, and Jade, for sharing with us your time, but especially your knowledge. It has been a pleasure to be here with you. I will invite you to come with us to the ceremony where I will have the pleasure to give Monika her prize. I'm going to turn into Spanish, okay? For a little while. Muchísimas gracias por venir. He empezado, soy un poco nerviosa, empezaba ya a saco, entonces no he dado las gracias como es debido. Muchísimas gracias a todos vosotros por venir. Muchas gracias a Jordi Laguarda, de la Embajada del Reino Unido aquí en España, por acompañarnos. Muchísimas gracias a la Oficina Económica y Comercial de España en Londres por haber venido, y por supuesto al equipo de ICEX que pues, ha organizado todo esto, que yo creo que ha sido, espero, como bastante provechoso, ¿vale? Que sigáis disfrutando de San Sebastián gastronómica y haciendo negocio, que de eso se trata también. Muchas gracias. Thank you so much.
Thank you.